Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Please go ahead and use the first few moments to get settled and use the chat to chat in where you're coming from. Hello from Ontario. Philadelphia, Toronto. Welcome, everyone. All right, we will go ahead and get started. So hello, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haley, and I'll be your host today as we discuss today's topic, DS-WAN in the digital transformation era, the key to the next generation solutions. This is brought to you by Juniper and hosted by VIB. Today's webinar will be about 45 minutes, and we will save the last few minutes for Q&A. Please use that Q&A button at the bottom of your window to ask any and all questions. We'll do our best to answer those questions, but for those who we don't get to, we'll follow up after. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Ali Carroll.
Hi, thank you again for joining us for today's webinar, SD-WAN in the digital transformation era. Today's webinar is sponsored by Juniper Networks and Momentum Telecom. A few housekeeping issues before we get started. Today's webinar will be recorded. If you would like access to the recording, please reach out to us and we can send you that link after the webinar. Also, if you have any questions, please submit them in the chat box. We'll answer them all at the end of the broadcast. And if we can't get to yours, we will have someone from our team follow up with you. Also, please keep an eye on your inbox. One lucky attendee will win a solo stove. So we will email that lucky raffle winner after the webinar. And with that, I would like to introduce today's presenters, starting with Tim Lito. Tim is the Director of Sales for the AI-Driven Enterprise here at Juniper Networks. So thank you for joining us, Tim.
My pleasure.
We are also joined by Mark Marquez, who is the Executive VP of Technology at Momentum. So thank you for joining us as well, Mark.
Thanks, Ali.
And then later on in the broadcast, we also have Justin Maloney, who is one of our product marketing managers and is going to do a brief demo for us. So thank you for joining us as well, Justin.
Thanks for having me, Ali.
Finally, I'm Ali Carroll. I'll be the moderator today. So I am also a product marketing manager with the AI-Driven Enterprise here at Juniper Networks, specializing in Juniper's AI-Driven SD-WAN. So to start off, I thought, you both could tell us a little bit about your background as well as, the relationship between Momentum and Juniper. So we can start with you, Mark.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Marquez. I'm the EVP of Technology at Momentum. I've been with Momentum since 2015 through an acquisition, but I've been in the industry since 1998. Momentum's a unified communications as a service provider. We also provide global fiber access and also SD-WAN solutions. We partnered with Juniper for SD-WAN about 3 years ago. So we were looking for not only a software, but equipment that could initially service our network business. So we were basically looking for something that would incorporate LTE connections so we could do remote access, remote troubleshooting. We're a communications provider, so we wanted something that could manage and effectively service our VoIP and video business. And SD-WAN was just coming into existence, and we knew that those technologies, everything was going to the cloud. We're a cloud provider, and we wanted something that could help to provide quality of service across all of our customer base. And we ended up going with Juniper Technologies. It just fit all of our needs, and we've been working with this solution for about 3 years now.
Awesome. And Tim, same question to you. If you could just tell us a little bit about your background as well as, the kind of relationship between Juniper and Momentum.
Yeah, certainly. Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Lito. I lead a team of specialists across North America focused around the SD-WAN market, technology, solution, etc. And I came to Juniper by way of an acquisition that Juniper made a couple of years ago by the name of 128 Technology. as this really innovative software-based SD-WAN and routing company that Juniper acquired to kind of launch Juniper into the next frontier of software-defined related networking and SD-WAN specifically. It's actually in that transition where we first started working with Momentum Telecom and working with Mark and his team, where we started to build a strong partnership. Juniper accelerated that to complement not only SD-WAN but a full stack of a portfolio. And since then, we've been delivering kind of world-class service together to Momentum's customer base.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that background. With that, we'll kind of jump into the first question. So first thing I wanted to talk about, is how has the network changed in the past few years, and what qualities should enterprises really be looking for in an SD-WAN solution? So we can start with you, Tim.
Yeah, sure. I think the way the network has changed, I think is summed up in one word, which is more. Right? There's more applications, there's more types of transport and different types of connectivity. There's more types of data centers and hosted environments, such as different cloud environments. There's more bandwidth that's needed to support those applications. So there's just so much more that a network needs to account for. And the SD-WAN environment should be able to handle that, right? Understand what type of traffic and what applications are priority, how to deliver the best experience, make sure the network is secure, have backup traffic be less of a priority than, say, your Zoom or your Teams call. So with all the influx of additional more that's coming at you, the SD-WAN should be able to understand all of those different options and deliver the ultimate experience across the network.
Absolutely. Mark, is there kind of anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I think as a managed service provider and even an enterprise, IT team that's managing the network, it needs to be simple, right? I think we're in a world of iPhones and Android phones where people can get applications, they can manage their network, they can use their email, their Office 365, their NetSuite, Salesforce, all from their phone. And I think they're used to that simplicity. And I think having a solution that can manage all of the networks, that can manage the expanding bandwidth that's out in the market. Tim touched on security. I think security is something that's been in the news for a lot of vendors and a lot of enterprises. They need to secure their business. So I think that is something that's extremely important. And I think as we get into managing networks, SD-WAN is one component. And I think one of the things that Juniper's done is there's a lot of different pieces of the network, from wireless to wired to remote access to router, switches, firewalls. And I think having that single pane of glass that can manage all of your solutions, including SD-WAN, is going to be important in making that selection.
Absolutely. So our next question is, what makes Momentum Navigator powered by Juniper, really uniquely suited to talk about some of those needs you just talked about, to deal with some of those needs you just talked about. So Mark, if you want to go ahead and answer this one.
Sure. So Momentum Navigator is Momentum's product that we built, designed, and developed, and actually incorporated the Juniper Secure Service Edge software. And for our original solution, we went out to customers, and one of the things that customers had kept telling us as a provider is, we don't want all of these different pieces of equipment at the edge of our network, right? So companies were trying to sell firewall solutions. They were trying to sell SD-WAN solutions. We're a fiber provider, so putting NIDs out in the infrastructure was another component. For voice and video, session border controllers were other pieces of equipment that provided special functionality for voice and video. So when you started, talking to enterprise IT management and leadership, they're like, "Hey, I've got 4 or 5 different pieces of equipment. Can we narrow that scope down into one?" So when we started looking at a software that would do network routing for our fiber business, that would do BGP and dynamic routing for our circuits, we were looking for an SD-WAN product set. And I think when we came across this solution and I'll give you just a little bit of history. Tim had mentioned 128 Technologies. That business, the original founders built a session border controller that's used in our carrier infrastructure today and a lot of enterprises, and ultimately was bought by Oracle. So we knew that the company and the engineering staff understood voice and video and cloud communication. So for all of those reasons, we took this box. It's a white box that we incorporated LTE into it. And the LTE, we could do remote troubleshooting, we could do remote implementation, and that was for the circuits, that was for the voice software, that was for the SD-WAN appliance. All of those we incorporated into what we call our Momentum Navigator, and that product's been expanded since we originally came out with it 3 years ago. So as Juniper has taken over 128 and added all of the different technology stacks, it's just a product that's going to continue to grow with us and our customer base.
Yeah, definitely. And Tim, is there anything else you'd like to add there about Momentum Navigator?
Yeah, I think, when you look at SD-WAN, it's complicated, right? And the technology itself might be extremely powerful and be able to handle all these different traffic types and offer a higher quality service. But there's so much more to it, right? You as an enterprise need to understand what are the types of connectivity you need at all your various locations, right? Who's going to troubleshoot them? How is it going to be troubleshooted? What is the data set you're correlating? Is there other components across the stack that you need to account for? Because it's not just an SD-WAN device, there's switch and there's LAN and there's carrier POPs and all this other stuff. So, Momentum takes world-class technology, packages it all up, and offers you all a managed service, right? To help augment world-class technology with high-quality service and take some of that burden off the end users, simply put. So I think that it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? Have help from an operational perspective, take into consideration other components beyond just SD-WAN, like voice, like Mark mentioned, and particularly on the access front, which is one of the biggest things around SD-WAN, right? You go from MPLS to all sorts of different types of connectivity, and those connectivity options are going to be different at every single location. And partnering with the strong partners such as Momentum is a way to really execute on that objective.
Yeah, definitely. Having a great service provider, partner to work with is incredibly important. And then Mark kind of touched on this a little bit, but this question is for you, Tim. Can you talk more about session smart routing and why a tunnel-free SD-WAN solution, is so important for today's enterprises?
Yeah, this is certainly a topic that I'm passionate about. Mark mentioned the core engineering team and the product we built back in the day that Juniper is now taking to market on this global grand scale. But there's two pieces of this, which is the session-based architecture and one that's tunnel-free. So if you look and think about any single digital engagement, it's all based on a session, right? That is the communication engagement of this Zoom call, of clicking a web browser, of a video session, a YouTube, whatever it might be. All of those digital engagements are based on a session. And so if your network is aware of all of the sessions that are happening across it, then you can start to segment and treat each session uniquely. If you want, you can prioritize appropriately, right? So your video traffic should have this particular SLA, which is going to be different than your point of sale traffic. That needs to be some sort of PCI compliance, which is going to be different from your backup traffic, right? So when you have insights into every single session, you can control it. You can then treat it appropriately. And then you also get a tremendous amount of rich analytics and data, which Juniper is certainly taking advantage of from an AI perspective, or Momentum's taking advantage of within their NOC, right? So session data, session relevance, session control is really a great way to effectively manage traffic across your WAN. And then furthermore, you take that session and then how you transport that session across the wild west of the internet or across the wide area network, right? And instead of just jamming sessions into a particular tunnel, which is the way, traditional SD-WAN is leveraged today, we use a tunnel-free approach, right? It's still equally secure, if not more. The payload is still encrypted by all the latest encryption standards, but instead of adding all this overhead and all this bloat to it, It's effectively tunnel free, transmitted across the wide area network, which gives a lot of bandwidth back to you as the enterprise, to the applications that are using it, and ultimately drives a much better performance. So a session, let's say a video session that is routed across the WAN in a tunnel is going to be a much less quality video experience than a video session that's routed across the WAN in a Juniper tunnel-free architecture.
Yeah, and Mark, let me know if there's anything you want to add there in terms of the benefits you see for Momentum and Session Smart Routing and tunnel-free SD-WAN.
Sure. Yeah, I think, really just to kind of provide a little bit more, I'd say, kind of real use case and clarity. If you think of the overhead that Tim mentioned of tunnels, most SD-WAN solutions incorporate IPsec tunnels, right? And IPsec in itself can take about 30% of your bandwidth in overhead just to build and maintain and route traffic across those tunnels. There's benefits to the tunnels in that they get encrypted, but with the Session Smart tunnelless solution, you're still getting encryption. And then if you look at the number of applications that are out there, I think it's probably now far more than 80% of the traffic that's on the internet is already encrypted. So if you're running encrypted traffic that's heading out to the cloud through another tunnel, you're actually double encrypting that traffic. So I think there's technical limitations to double encryption when it comes to MTUs if you get into the kind of the technicalities of it. But when you start looking at circuits, there's more going to the cloud. Circuits are getting bigger, but when you look at let's say a gig circuit, every kind of network engineer knows that you can really calculate about 85% of that circuit. If you have a gig circuit, you're never going to transmit and receive a full 1 gig. So you're already kind of knocking off about 15% of your usable bandwidth. Tack on another 30% for the IPsec tunnel overhead, you're really degrading the amount of traffic that you're going to be able to pass over that circuit. And then if you start looking at smaller packet sizes, there's overhead on every packet. You can get as much as 200% worth of overhead for smaller packet sizes. So depending on how different applications and what size packets and the overhead, double encryption, I think there's a lot of beneficial reasons to have a tunnelless SD-WAN. And I think Juniper is the only provider out there that provides a tunnelless solution, yet you still get the encryption and you're already encrypting a lot of the applications that are out there.
Yeah, awesome. That was a great kind of example of some real life applications of our tunnelless routing solution. So the next one, and I'll start with you, Tim, on this one. AI is huge for us at Juniper. Can you talk about the role of AI in a next generation solution?
Yeah, happy to. So when we mentioned about the Juniper acquisition of 128, right, from an SD-WAN perspective, and Juniper had the option to look at every SD-WAN company on the planet, really, that was available in the marketplace. And if not the biggest reason that they acquired 128 was for that session-related data that I mentioned previously. And that data set is so rich about what is going on across the network. What is the experience of your customers, of your employees across your network? But it's so much data that how can just any IT engineer sift through it all and troubleshoot everything to understand all there is to know about what's going on, right? So when you partner with let's say Juniper in this case, where you take advantage of AI is sifting through loads and loads and loads of data with machines, which is simply processing that humans are not able to do. And so when you take about AI, it's really about the race to zero is what we say, which is reduce the amount of troubleshooting tickets that you have to process, that Momentum has to process, they're managing, right? Get to the resolution as quickly as possible. Get out in front of the experience issues that are out there. So one example I like to talk about is like, how do you know if there's a bad cable across your network, right? It is, you're gonna have latency, maybe you have some packet fragmentation going on. You're gonna be calling your carriers, you're gonna be calling Juniper, you're gonna be calling Momentum, you're calling everybody to understand why is the user experience bad at this particular location on these random parts of a particular day. And it's so hard to understand what the actual unique signatures are of a bad cable amongst millions of cables across your network. And something like AI and machine learning understands like basic baselines and signatures of packet stamps and fragmentation that is happening, starts to correlate that and process that, and boom, it spits out an alert that says, hey, we think you have a bad cable on port 5 in store B. You should replace it, versus just either doing a wholesale network refresh or changing carriers, or going through this extensive scavenger hunt to try to improve something that you have no idea what's going on. So it's about reducing the amount of effort it takes to manage your network. It's about reducing the amount of time it takes to troubleshoot it. It's about incorporating all sorts of the stack, not just SD-WAN, but switch and wireless and data center, right? So correlate all of this rich data and help you as IT leaders to be more efficient, basically. So
yeah, definitely. And Mark, let me know if there's anything you want to add about the importance of AI and the importance to AI for momentum.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the things that we've always looked to do with the tools and the products and the applications that we implement and support for our customers is we always like to say there's going to be issues. Technology has issues, and as Tim mentioned, the quicker you can find those issues, the better. But when Momentum's a provider of not only circuits and fiber and voice and video, when there's issues, the CEO of a company or one of our customers may say, "Hey, we're having voice issues. Who's our provider?" And the IT guy's going to say, "Well, it's Momentum." Well, if he's having a bad experience because of something that's not related to Momentum, we want to have the tools in place to help that customer identify that issue as quickly as possible, resolve the issue, and we like data to point towards the issue rather than pointing fingers. So I think one of the parts where AI comes into place is nowadays, everything is going into a data lake. And I think the artificial intelligence is analyzing that data in the data lake. And from our perspective, if your routers, your switches, your firewalls, your SD-WAN, your circuits, your DNS, your DHCP, anything that could affect communications and call quality and video quality are going into that data lake. And you've got an artificial intelligence and machine learning tool that can quickly point out DNS issues, quickly point out DHCP issues, quickly point out circuit issues, quickly point out even network issues, interface issues, flapping issues. Things break on network interfaces. So there's a lot of things that can affect the network that can degrade service. And I think getting to that solution quickly is where AI will come into. That's where it's gonna be the best.
Yeah, definitely. We like to call that the mean time to innocence. So basically, how can you quickly rule out what's going on? Awesome. So the next question will go back to you, Mark. We talked about this earlier. Networks are just becoming bigger, becoming more complex. How should today's businesses that are maybe mid-size, looking to grow to enterprise, really think about scaling their networks?
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at LinkedIn the other day, and one of our sales guys had sent out a video to a lot of our customers and potential customers about this seminar, and the video was really good. They were standing behind a highway of a lot of cars going on that highway, and when you think of networks, they're really highways, and the cars are information that we're traversing. And I think over the way the networks have changed is a lot more is going to the cloud. So people are taking voice, video to the cloud. I think with the pandemic, a lot more people are working at home. I think circuits have gotten a lot faster. We used to sell T1s and multi-link T1s, and we've gotten into 1 gig and 5 gig, and now we're getting into 10 gig. We've got customers that are interested in 100 gig connections, and being able to manage those that size of data and those size of circuits. So I think as people plan their networks, just realize it's going to get bigger. And I think looking at tools, Juniper's a networking company. They deal with routers, switches, firewalls, SD-WAN. They're scalable. And I think later on, we're going to talk about the Mist environment that's going to manage all of these different solutions and the AI that's built into Mist. So I think trying to scale a network fast, you have to understand what's going on in that network and what data is being transmitted and where are my users communicating and what network technologies am I using, whether it's wireless, remote, am I having those remote users VPNing in, where is the data that they're accessing? So I think really just managing, making automation in the deployment of new sites as you grow, new technologies, all of that is needs to be taken into consideration. I think the way the Juniper tools are being packaged for all of those different technologies, and they're being built to scale, and they're being built for high availability. That's something we haven't talked about yet, but in the SD-WAN world, the Juniper products capable of high availability. So even uptime, all of those things that are required as you grow your business are considerations that need to be looked at.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tim, let me know if there's anything you'd like to add.
Well, one heck of a managed service provider partner helps scale for sure, like Momentum. That's certainly a way we see a lot of our clients help scale, right? Have various staff augmentation, various managed services help implement, right? Just you can't do it all yourself at times. If you want to do it effectively and quickly, lean on partners. And then on the technology front, right, like Mark mentioned, a single pane of glass that manages a bunch of best of breed technologies, right? That is a single source that is doing a lot of the back end integration that, yes, you can be, quote unquote, technology agnostic or best of breed, but Juniper's position is we want to be best of breed at every single technology component in the stack, have it managed by a single pane of glass, and then leverage AI to make the troubleshooting and operational component as simple as possible.
Awesome. I think this will be our last question. So we can start with you, Mark, on this one. Can you give us an example of a customer whose business has really been improved by this technology and this partnership?
Sure. Yeah. So Momentum, when I kind of did the introduction, so Momentum provides services to enterprises, but we also provide services to about 400 white label providers that basically use Momentum's infrastructure and our products and our services, and they white label them. So we've got carriers that connect their networks to Momentum, and a lot of times they will do that through a number of different ways. They'll connect over the internet. They'll bring in dedicated circuits to connect into our data centers. When we need for cable infrastructures, we'll use GRE connections over the internet to provide encapsulated kind of connectivity to us. And within the past year, we had a large carrier that ended up having a VPLS connection that came into our data centers, and their provider had a fiber cut somewhere else, and they ended up shifting traffic across their network, and it degraded the overall voice services that this carrier was running through Momentum. And we helped originally design that infrastructure years ago. But when we were working with them, they had said, listen, we've got multiple circuits that are going into different data centers. We had a degradation of service due to a fiber cut somewhere else. How come those circuits didn't fail over? Well, we had implemented BGP with those carriers, and BGP is meant to help with actual circuit failures, but it doesn't really do anything for circuit degradation. So we ended up implementing the Juniper product set in high available node in all of their data centers. We already run high available nodes in all of the Momentum data centers. And now we were able to incorporate the GRE circuits or GRE configured circuits, the dedicated circuits, and public internet circuits. And using this product, we were able to incorporate QoS and class of service all within a carrier to carrier. So from an enterprise perspective, everything's going to the cloud. So enterprises need to take these same type of concepts between their infrastructures, their offices, and their cloud providers. So Juniper's, I don't know if everybody knows it, Juniper's product can be run on virtual. It can be run in all of the different cloud environments. It can be run on physical boxes like the Momentum Navigator that we've built in premise. So I think it's a solution that's flexible for all of the different A to Z communication points that a business is going to need to cover in their larger SD-WAN infrastructure.
Awesome. And Tim, do you have anything to add, to that particular customer or, a different example?
I think Mark just said flexibility, right? And I think that's part from a technology perspective, whether it's run as an appliance on the Navigator, whether it's run as a virtual machine, whether it's a cloud use case, a branch use case, a data center use case. Those are all different areas that we're partnering together on providing, services to our joint customers, and it across the wide range, right? So it's other solution providers, it's small enterprise, it's big enterprise, and everything in between. So yeah, it's just a really strong partnership, and it's been really a pleasure working with Momentum over the last couple of years.
Awesome. So that kind of wraps up our questions. So I will turn it over to Justin to do a really quick demo, and then we can answer questions from the audience.
Thanks, everyone. Great job. All right, so one of the things, I'm gonna show off the Momentum Navigator using the Mist portal. But one of the things that I saw Tim and Mark mention, or a couple of the things that almost kind of sounded contradictory but aren't, is when they talked about what does SD-WAN mean, or what do networks need moving forward. And we have more applications, we have more services, we have more links. And at the same time, we need to be simplified, right? And so that has been a big problem for SD-WAN for a while. Going out there, you enable businesses to have more applications and use different circuits and all this other kind of stuff and track that. And as we talked about, have the SLAs measured. But at the same time, that's a lot more data points and that's a lot more information to have to get through. So how does that become simple? And that's where the Momentum Navigator comes in with this Mist Cloud interface. So, and then there was also a lot of mention of the AI technology, the AI ML, right? And if you think of what machine learning is, it's taking a lot of data and looking for patterns. And so with the Mist Cloud and the Momentum Navigator, the Momentum is able to look at your network and look at what we call SLEs, or service level experiences, and easily diagnose any issues that come to them. So we talked a bit about like the bad cable, being able to notice if there is a cable out there that is bad and fix it right away. But there are some things that may not necessarily be bad, but you open up a ticket with Momentum and Momentum can jump in, and just from the SD-WAN side, they can go and easily tell you, is it the device itself that's causing the problem? That's your WAN Edge Health. Is it one of your links out there, or is it the application? So you're out there, you're using Teams or Zoom or any application out there, and it's not working. You have to troubleshoot, or whoever's troubleshooting your network needs to figure out, where is it not working? Is it something on your network that's not working? Is it something with the service provider that's not working? Or could there be an outage where the application's hosted in AWS and Azure, any of those cloud applications? And using this interface, Momentum can easily get to that. And as Ali brought up, we call that the mean time to innocence, being able to tell you, okay, it's actually the service provider. We will go on and deal with that. Oh, sorry, it looks like the device that you're using to access that particular application seems to be the problem. So you get all that with our SLEs, and we do the SLEs through everything, right? So this is just the WAN side. So this will be your edge router. And each SLE is broken down into classifiers. So we can see right now my WAN link healths, my links on the outside of my branch, my service provider links, there's 99% success rate, but there is some problems. It's not 100%, so we can jump in, click to see that the network seems to be one of the problems. There seems to be some latency, and we can see which items are affected by that. So which clients might come in and complain about those particular issues, which interfaces, and then which devices themselves are having this. And from each of those, you can then click on and go and get more information to help see what applications are those users accessing. And as we said, we can do this for the WAN, we can do this for the switches, and we can do this for the wireless side as well. Now, another great thing about the Momentum Navigator is we give you security too. So it's not just, a big thing with security now is, do you want the security at the branch? Do you want the security in the cloud? And we can do both. From the branch side, we have IDP, URL filtering, zero trust security. And as we talked about, the session smart routing, where you get your traffic is encrypted. So no one but the two session smart routers or Momentum navigators will know what traffic is going back and forth. But as you can see from here, it knows the traffic to a level that it can actually differentiate between your different applications. Right here, we know that users are using Zoom, CNN, Office 365. IPsec tunnels don't give you this. That's the problem with tunnel technology, is you can't see that information. But with the Session Smart routing technology of the Momentum Navigator, you can. And then we also have the IDP technology here to alert you to traffic that could potentially be bad. And you then can look at it, see, okay, we see that, there's potentially a Trojan attack over here. Let's go look and see what the threat labs tells us about that. So we have those. And then if you do want to have your security access in the cloud, you want to have your SASE infrastructure, then you can easily create routes using the Momentum Navigators to send that traffic, specific traffic, all traffic, whatever you want, up to the SSE or whatever secure cloud firewall solution you have out there. So it's really cool. It makes the job much easier to resolve the issues, to get that information that we need, that either tells us where the problem is and who do we need to contact to fix it, or helps us fix the problem on its own.
One thing I was going to add, Justin, is, think about like a flight tracker analogy. So not only is all this data being collected, but it's being stored, right? So oftentimes, somebody might have an issue, but they're scrambling to get on a webinar and they just jump on and they forget about it. And then it comes up again. And then you call and the IT ticket is logged that I had an issue with Teams last week. And at that point, it's typically like, well, let us know when it happens again and collect the logs, right? Something along, wait for the event, wait and see. And once it happens, then send it over. But with kind of this type of technology, you say, well, what day did you have the event again? Oh, it was last Tuesday. Bam, you go to that Tuesday event, you see all the failure events. Oh, was it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? It was perfect. It looks like it's an auth failure. And now you're double clicking, you understand what the issue was, and you can kind of solve for it then. So that kind of getting out in front of it or looking back because the data is stored is it's fairly powerful piece of this overall solution.
And just kind of adding on to that a little bit more, Tim, like look right here, we have this incident right here as an authorization failure. The packet capture has already been pulled for you. You don't have to go through all of the PCAPs, all of the lines, and figure out which ones are related. The AI/ML technology within the Juniper, the Momentum Navigator is all right here for you to get that information. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Justin. So I think we can go ahead. We have a few questions from the audience. So the first one is, what are the security features of Juniper's technology? So I know Justin talked a little bit about that, but I don't know, Tim and Mark, if there's anything you could add there.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I guess I'll take first crack and you can expand upon it. But so Juniper has a complete security portfolio, right? So the SD-WAN product itself is a certified network firewall with a host of next-gen firewall features that are acceptable for the branch, generally speaking, right? So IDP, IPS, URL filtering, encryption, different types of segmentation. So a whole host of security features that are typical and are needed from a branch security perspective. And then if advanced security functionality is needed, typically we send traffic to big honking security services edge, like the SASE style architecture, where CASB and a bunch of different types of cloud-based security functions are performed. So our kind of mentality is to make sure the SD-WAN device has all the relevant security functions that are needed for the branch, and then be able to peer and segment and steer traffic to various other security services where there's kind of an aggregate global view from a threat labs perspective that can be taken advantage of. Mark, your comments?
Yeah, I think we quickly brushed over the zero trust model that is inherent in the Juniper product. So when we deploy an SD-WAN environment, by default, everything is deny all. So a lot of newer security recommendations are for applications and application providers and network providers to get to a zero trust model. So by deploying the Juniper solution to our customers, we start with a zero trust. And I think the application ID that's built inside of the Juniper product starts to get us into what applications What are people accessing? What do people need to access? And then we can start building rules to allow different applications. And it also incorporates micro-segmentation. So we can start taking customers, taking their executives, their sales leaders, their support teams, and all of the different applications that each of those different groups have to access, and we can see that, and we can start to build the internal kind of zero trust rules to allow access, and then everything else is denied. So it starts to get in better security rolled out through customers that deploy this SD-WAN solution, because it starts with deny everything, and the application ID really helps us to see what traffic is needed. We can do that in a lab. We can analyze it. We can start to configure that network for, for all of the applications and all of the areas that are being accessed.
Definitely. So our next question is, can you kind of talk about the specific benefits for business? So how does this really impact the bottom line?
I can speak to from an SD-WAN general perspective, right? So there's I think two major ways. One is certainly reduce cost, right? And the SD-WAN use case was really founded by moving away from the more expensive types of connectivity. They were reliable, they were fairly secure, but they were expensive and they had minimal bandwidth. And with the kind of the current age of the digital world, like we talked about at the beginning, a lot more bandwidth is needed to account for all the rise in digital services and digital transformation and applications and cloud-based services, on and on and on, video conferencing, etc. So how do you go support the needs of the business while generally reducing costs? Well, going to kind of business grade or consumer grade internet or fiber, was a means to reduce costs, add more bandwidth to the picture, but now you need a pretty intelligent router to account for all that, right? That was the generally SD-WAN use case. And then further, gaining more insights into what's going on in the network, right? Giving the business the ability to roll out more services. How are you going to offer guest Wi-Fi to maybe your corporate facilities, or maybe if you're a retailer, some of your retail locations, right? Or maybe it's a store within a store type of use case, right? How could you actually use your network as a means to generate different types of revenue opportunities? How are you going to segment your network appropriately so you can peel off all the traffic that you don't want, the Facebook and the Yahoo and those types of random internet destined services, get them off your network so they're not bogging down the expensive circuits that you paid for, or the throughput of your expensive data center infrastructure, so on and so forth. So reducing cost is certainly first and foremost. We talked about the AI piece, so reducing the amount of operational churn it takes. So that's another cost reduction. And then kind of having more agility and control to drive more relevant business services, is part of the equation.
Yeah, definitely. And Mark, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I think for businesses, we're in a world of staffing shortages, right? Businesses want to grow, and I think some of the most expensive resources are highly skilled network engineers. And when you're trying to build a network, manage a network, we talked about Mist and incorporating all of your network components into Mist to be able to manage it. I think that's going to produce just inherent cost savings. And I think as people, as engineers, there's a lot more technologies out there that businesses want to employ. So I think if we can simplify the network management, automate the expansion of that network, and free up engineers' resources to look at other parts of the business that want to grow, I think those are where a lot of the cost savings, just in the product and its capabilities can help.
Yeah, definitely. And when you have a great partner, when you have an AI solution, you free up time for your internal IT resources to start thinking long-term rather than dealing with everyday network issues. So I think we have time for one more. So last question I have are, what are Momentum Navigator's key differentiators for manufacturing companies?
Tim, I'll start with that. I think all the businesses, can take advantage of all of the different technologies and solutions and components that we talked about today. But for manufacturing, I think one of the things that we've done specifically with Momentum Navigator is we build it with LTE for our remote implementation, our remote configuration, and our remote support. But when we take a customer that's got Momentum Navigator and add SD-WAN, they can use that LTE as a backup connection in case a primary connection goes down. They can use it as a supplemental connection. And then we put what we call an eSIM. So there's obviously different cellular providers. So our eSIM allows us to connect to AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon, whichever provider is better in the area. And I know a lot of manufacturing facilities tend to be a little bit remote. So our eSIM will allow those devices to connect to the circuit, the LTE circuit that's going to be the most reliable and offer the best speeds right off the bat.
Awesome. And yeah, Tim, is there anything else you want to kind of add there about manufacturing and just the specific benefits for that vertical?
And Mark mentioned the remote kind of element of manufacturing, which I think is really important. I think the rise of Internet of Things and the need for, every single device is likely digitally connected more often than not these days through wireless access points, right? And then there starts to drive the need for a complete full stack that is managed by a single UI and has AI on top of it. So back to the Mist portfolio, Juniper's done really, really well in the manufacturing space when you incorporate the wireless technology through the wired switching and then into the WAN. It's a strong use case for that full stack portfolio.
Awesome. So it looks like we are just out of time. So if I didn't get to your question, we will definitely have someone from our team follow up with you. If you have any questions that you didn't think of now, feel free to reach out to me. My email is acarroll@juniper.net. And keep an eye out for your inbox. We will be raffling off a solo stove for one lucky attendee. So thank you so much for joining us today, and feel free to reach out with any questions.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you again so
everyone.
much. I really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and close out this webinar. If you have any questions, and if you registered through VIB with your business email, if you have any questions, contact GC@VIB Tech. But thank you, everyone from Juniper and Momentum. We really appreciate having you today, and we hope everyone else has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. See you
Bye-bye.
guys.